Good morning, everyone. Very good morning to all of you, and welcome to our webinar entitled Do Habits Work for Teens? A Perfect IBDP Scholar shares his top 5 habits. This webinar is part of our weekly webinar series entitled Breakthrough Stories, Journeys of Hope. My name is Sarah Chan. We are about to begin. We appreciate if you could mute your microphone, as this could give you better webinar experience. Should you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and our speakers will address them at the end of the webinar. We would like to thank each and every one of you for following and observing the meeting etiquette, and most importantly, for taking time to join us in our webinar today. Allow me to introduce our speakers. Dr. Vincent Chian is a medical graduate and a former psychiatry registrar. Over the last 11 years, he taught biology, inspired a science department, led the IB diploma program, and championed holistic education as our principal. Under his leadership, the IBDP or IB diploma at Fairview handed out over 2 million in scholarships and achieved a cohort average of 37 out of 45 points. He was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by Kingsley Strategic Institute for Asia Pacific for Educational Excellence this year, 2021. And our speaker, number 2, Mr. Ahnaf Rahman, is an IB Diploma alumni from Fairview International School, graduating this year, cohort 2021. He received a perfect score of 45 out of 45 in the IB Diploma examinations. Ahnaf is also a recipient of the Pearson Scholarship for the University of Toronto, a full ride scholarship covering all tuition, accommodation, food, and other living expenses. He's currently a first-year student in the co-op BBA program at the University of Toronto at Scarborough. Now, with great anticipation, I present to you Dr. Vincent Chian and Mr. Ahnaf. Let the story begin.
Morning, everybody. Great to see you all here. Thanks so much for spending time on a Saturday morning to join us on this very interesting breakthrough story that we're going to share with you today. So, as with all good educators, we always start by sharing with everybody what are we going to be doing today, so we know what we're going to be up to. And this is going to be the map of our journey. We've got 5 habits that Ahnaf is going to share with you that really changed his life. And I'll tell you guys, I've listened to this already, and some of these habits are things that I learned at business school and beyond. And they are very, very powerful. So guys, if you really want to supercharge your future career and take yourself to the next level, even adults, listen very carefully, because he's got something special to share with you. So Ahnaf, we're going to start with the first habit that you want to share with us: learning effectively and efficiently. What can you tell us about this?
Thank you so much, Dr. Vincent, for the warm welcome. I'm really glad to be here and contributing once again to the Fairview community. The first habit I would like to talk about is learning efficiently and effectively. So this comes in 2 parts. The first part is to make good notes from numerous sources. And the second part is having a list with all of your sources ranked and categorized. I started doing this around grade 8, and I realized that for whatever notes I had prepared, the night before the exam when I was revising, all of these notes were too messy. I didn't really understand what was going on. So what happened was, usually the day before the exam, I'm rewriting all my notes. And this was quite counterproductive, because that was the time I could have spent preparing for my I could have done past paper questions, I could have done some more practice questions, but I was just rewriting all my notes again. So I tried so many different methods. In school, we learned about the Cornell method, boxing, charting, so many different methods. But I took the time to actually try out all these methods and see what really works for me. And eventually, I came across the outlining method, and this was the one for me. So essentially what the outlining method does is I start off with a big bullet point, and every other point comes in sub bullet points or sub bullet points. So I could see the big picture and I could go deeper into each of these sections. But you see, this practice over here, this involves bullet points. And when we're speaking, we are using sentences, right? So the whole practice of converting these sentences into short and memorable bullet points is something I fostered through this habit.
That's interesting. I personally don't, we teach the Cornell and the outline method, and I think about 3 other methods of note-taking in the school, but you chose the outline method, which is frankly my personal preference as well. I have a preference to one of the note-taking skills, and that's kind of why we teach so many. But I've got a question for you. Like, why couldn't you just, just read the book, right? Why do we have to spend time writing notes? Because, when you spend time writing notes, again, doesn't that kill time and waste time? And that means less time that you can actually do other things like that could be more effective when preparing yourself in your learning or enhancing your learning. Like you could do, I don't know, study groups or spend all that time doing other things. What do you think about that?
That's a great question. Well, I realized that whether I'm revising the notes that my teacher has given me or a textbook, everyone is communicating in a way that is convenient for them. It's convenient for them to transfer it, but it's not always the most convenient way for me to digest that information. I feel the whole term of a good note is quite subjective. I have friends who do very aesthetically pleasing notes, but that doesn't work for me. For me, my goal is to transfer the information that I'm learning onto paper or on my iPad as smoothly and as efficiently as possible. So whatever time I'm losing in the short term, I'm confident that I'm getting all that time back and even some more in the future.
Excellent. So everybody summary from habit number 1, learn efficiently and effectively, take good notes. What a simple statement to make, but a lot of us put it aside. Now, just as we move on, guys, I want to suggest to everybody, if you really want to make good use of what Ahnaf is sharing here, write these 5 things down. Take a snapshot of it right now and put it in as a checklist. And then one by one, build a habit around each one of them. That's how you're really going to get a lot out of this conversation, because each of these things is one habit that you need to form. So the first habit is take good notes. And if you can start taking good notes, it's going to supercharge everything else. I really like how you talked about rewriting and putting it into your own words, and that idea of paraphrasing. That's fantastic. But in the interest of time, I'm going to move forward so we can hear all the other habits as well. So the next habit we've got going for us is be the last to speak. Now, this is a really weird one. I mean, I come from a very noisy family, so everybody wants to speak. So I want to hear, what do you have to say about be the last to speak?
Thank you. And I share that sentiment as well. I also come from a family, and all these group discussions, my mindset was always, how can I add to this conversation? How can I add my point? But what I realized from my group discussions all the way through middle school and high school as well, was that my group always happened to be the one that had lots of great points during the group discussions. But when we had to finally present it to the teacher, we didn't have any final output. And this felt quite demotivating because we had such a good process. It's just that we had no output to this. So I reflected, and I realized that, when I watch debate shows, I'm seeing a moderator moderate the entire discussion and everything is going so smoothly. So what if I took that role in my group? So the first time I actually practiced this, I believe this was for in English class, where we were analyzing an article, and everyone in my group had so many different ideas. We should analyze the title first and the image next, the third paragraph, the fourth paragraph, and so on. This was the time that I would have added my own points to this, but I tried to hold myself back and absorb all that information. I wrote this all down, and for every single point that everyone had, I would ask clarifying questions. Is this what you mean? Am I understanding this the right way? And once I've done that and I've written that down, in the last couple of minutes, I felt that was the time for me to shine. So I would be presenting to everyone. So look, this is what we have discussed so far. Clearly, it doesn't go well when we when we connect the first person who spoke with the second person, we have to reshuffle some of these ideas. And look, some of these ideas are a bit too one-dimensional. Let's perhaps consider a second perspective or a third perspective. So essentially, in the first half of the group discussion, I was acting as a sponge and just absorbing all that information, asking clarifying questions here and there. But in the second half of the discussion, I would be connecting all the dots and presenting it to my group members in such a way that we would have a clear flow to our presentation. And the first time we did this, till then, our group would always receive feedback that great ideas, but the flow was very choppy. But in the first time I tried this habit in school, the teacher actually acknowledged and appreciated the fact that my group's presentation finally had a really nice transition and flow to this. And not just that, I could actually see the difference in my interactions with my friends and my colleagues. When I was asking them clarification questions, I could see their smile, and they were genuinely appreciating these questions, because I realized back in the old days, when they would make a point, my intention would be to bounce back with another point. But this time, I was actually listening to what they were saying. I was asking them clarification questions to see if I'm understanding them the way they wanted to be understood. So I felt that I was making my teammates feel valued. And at the end, when I was presenting my thoughts and connecting all the dots, I got to synthesize the entire discussion. Now, synthesizing is a very important skill that we use not just for discussions, but in our exams, our assignments as well. So overall, I feel this was a very, very underrated habit that I got to learn a lot of these different skills from.
Wow. So for all the adults out there, be the last to speak. I mean, how many times as an adult, we go into a meeting and we're just like brimming full of ideas. We just keep talking. And everybody keeps talking. And nothing gets done. But when you adopt that attitude, I will be the last to speak. I'm going to listen. I'm going to take a look at other people's keyword perspectives here. It's really going to change things. And I really love, see, some beautiful words are coming out here. One, perspectives, listening to other people's perspectives. I heard reflected. Actually, how many kids from every other educational system use the word reflection? I think it's like taboo or something. But Ahnaf, you've reflected a lot in the IB programs, haven't you? I mean, we do that pretty much every other week. There's some kind of reflection going on, and after a while, it just becomes natural for you to reflect. I thought there was great wisdom in listening first. There's something there about teamwork. You talked about how your friends' faces changed when you asked them, what do you mean by that? Can I understand you better? That's beautiful. Teamwork. There's respond. Oh, I added this, responding, not reacting. You actually said, let's wait and respond rather than react quickly and blah, 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 blah. Which is beautiful as well. And the final beautiful one you added there, you were able to synthesize. Now, synthesis is what we call a higher order thinking skill. For those who don't know about Bloom's taxonomy, it's basically one of the highest order thinking skills, like the highest level of cognitive ability in the Bloom's taxonomy of words, of thinking methods. And Ahnaf was describing how he's able to bring together different ideas. That's the definition of synthesis, and come out with a fourth option from that. So beautiful words over there, Ahnaf. But I got a funny question for you. We're not always in a team where everybody's got lots of ideas. I could be in a totally passive team where nobody's saying anything. And, waiting to be the last person to speak in that situation could be quite painful. So, what would you suggest about that one then?
That's a great point. The example I just mentioned about the first time I implemented this in my English group discussion, well, you have to understand that the great thing about studying in Fairview was that we had really small cohort sizes and we were all friends with one another. So we had that environment where everyone was very confident and they were not shy to share their points. But I've also been in groups where, people are quite passive, as you just mentioned. So I feel this is a habit because you really need to invest in these people and actually get to that stage where they're willing to speak up first. So perhaps in the first group discussion, maybe what I did was that I would take the charge and I would start the conversation and I would ask the different group members, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then in the second group discussion, I could see that they were more willing to share these ideas. Try this a third time, fourth time, a fifth time. And eventually I got to the stage where just as much as I was willing to speak the last, I could see the others in my group were willing to speak first. So I feel these two events are not mutually exclusive. They need to work together. So if you create that environment to actually have your group mates actually share their points openly, then I feel that we as the people who speak last can actually benefit from that as well. So it goes hand in hand.
Well, I can see how that method of yours is actually very invitational. So if they don't want to speak, it's okay. I'll invite you to speak anyway, but I'm not going to go and assert my opinions too fast because I want to give you space to breathe. I really like how you moved there on this one. Nicely done. So we've done 2 habits, everybody. Just remind you, if you really want to take the most out of this, put this in like a to-do list or just a checkbox and work through these habits one by one. And if you build for these 5 habits, I am pretty sure it's going to supercharge your life. It's going to transform you in all sorts of interesting ways. Now we're going to go to the 3rd habit, which is making connections between subjects. So those of you in business, I'm going to give you the classic statement. Sales will not do anything that relates to operations because it's operations problem, and operations won't care about what marketing does because that's marketing's problem. And this is the classic problem we see in industry and in business, that people work in silos and they don't dare work out of their silos or connect to one another. But the most powerful things that happen because people come together and make connections between marketing and operations and R&D when people work together. And in business, unfortunately, we have a lot of siloed departments and siloed thinking. So think about that as Ahnaf shares with you this wonderful habit about making connections between subjects. Ahnaf, take us away on this one.
Absolutely. I realized that I needed this when I came to this observation that I do my best work when I am motivated, right? And when I was in the IBDP program, I was taking 6 subjects, and I felt it was quite impossible for me to actually stay motivated and excited about every single topic in every single subject. So I needed that extra push to actually gain some appreciation about topics that I naturally wouldn't be as enthusiastic about. So the whole idea about making connections to other things that we have learned about, this was not something I invented, right? When we were in grade 7, starting from grade 7, we started doing interdisciplinary units where we are basically given 2 subjects and we are told to explicitly make connections between them. In grade 11, when we had our personal project, one of the most important strands was actually to make connections with all the subjects that we have learned. So this is what I tried to do to actually convert this thought into a habit. So every time I'm learning something new, what I try to do is I spend 5 minutes and I try to make 1 to 2 connections with things that I've already learned before. And I would try to use a visual organizer to actually collate all the thoughts together. So this is an example that I presented. This is from my notes from a year ago. So when I was learning about nuclear energy in physics, this was a topic that I felt was a bit challenging, and I was asked to make a presentation about this. And when I'm demotivated, it's very difficult for me to actually speak about nuclear energy out of nowhere. So to gain some perspective, what I tried to do is actually connect this with everything else I've learned. So for instance, in economics, I learned about the different policies that governments are doing to promote clean energy. In English, we learned about the socio-economic context of the Cold War, where nuclear energy played a huge theme. In business, we learned about the opportunities and threats that businesses face as a result of nuclear energy. And in maths, we learned about exponential decay functions, which are connected to nuclear energy. So overall, before I even learned the physics behind nuclear energy, I could actually connect all these different points. So I was not starting from zero. I actually had a foundation because I could borrow all these thoughts from all these different subjects into physics. And it's not just a one-way relationship. When I returned back to English and I had to write my next essay on the Cold War, or when I had to write my next essay on government policies to promote clean energy, I could borrow the learnings I had in physics over to those subjects. So overall, it's a two-way process, and just spending these 5 minutes helped me get a mile, lots of miles further. So I feel like this is something that we're taught to do, but we don't actually take the time to do this initiatively. often. So this is what I tried to do, and I feel it worked wonders for me.
Wow. Ahnaf, can you just point out for me, of the four subjects that you made a connection to, which ones did you really like a lot?
I really liked economics and business from these. So those really put things into perspective on why I should really learn the physics and the technicalities behind nuclear energy. So I could connect it back to those subjects as well.
Fantastic. And so when learning something new, spend 5 minutes, make 1 or 2 connections, and use the visual organizer. So the visual organizer is essentially anything that makes it look visual. This diagram over here is a visual organizer. You can do dots and arrows and skulls and crosses if you wanted to, but anything that makes it look a little bit visual so you can understand it. But Anna, can you share with us, right? All these theoretical exercises that we're doing in the classroom, these interdisciplinary units. And by the way, for everybody who doesn't know, the interdisciplinary unit is a special class in the IB. It doesn't exist anywhere else, that intentionally connects 2 subjects in the middle years program. So they intentionally connect 2 subjects and teach them together, teaching the kids to connect it automatically, so it doesn't become an unnatural thing. And in the PYP, they don't connect 2, they connect 4 different subjects at the same time. So this is something that Ahnaf would have experienced many, many times over the years. So he's very familiar with the process, but other people are not. But beyond a mental exercise, Ahnaf, how does it work for us in the real world? I mean, how does this really work in the real world? I mean, yeah, you got yourself interested, but is this going to be any use later on?
Fantastic. It's a really good question, right? And the way I want to approach this answer is like this. So think about any inventions that we have had in the past couple of centuries. And once you think about every invention, you see that that invention is kind of like the intersection or the combination of 2 fields that were previously unrelated. Take the smartphone, for example. It's the first thing that came to my mind. It's just right in front of me. We had a telephone and we had computers, but some brilliant people thought that what if we combine these 2 fields together? So I feel that every invention or every advancement that we have had in our society has been because we are combining 2 fields or more than 2 fields together. And we're seeing what happens when we do this combination. So by doing this exercise, I'm basically trying to prepare myself to see connections that others may not be able to see. Because I have this habit and I've committed to this, this has become second nature to me. So whenever I'm learning something new, I'm automatically thinking, what else can I link this to? Rather than diving deeper into this and just specializing into that one topic. So hopefully I am preparing myself to do greater things with this, but let's see with that.
Wow. To do greater things. I mean, are you the next Jobs now? Steve Jobs or something?
I wish.
If you start seeing some connections that nobody else can see, then I think you're going to, make big moves. And so everybody, for all our listeners here, that's exactly what the IB is trying to do. It's trying to change the way that we think about the world and prepare our children to do amazing things. And one of these methods that we use that no one else is able to in any program is help our children see connections between 2 previously unrelated things. A very deep topic, a very powerful habit. I encourage everybody to put this down. Wonderful. So we're going to move on to our 4th habit, Ahnaf. Invest in...
Can you open the Zoom yourself?
Sorry, everybody, just try and mute yourself while we're doing the webinar, okay? So invest in relationships regularly and strategically. So for everybody out there, everybody who's already working as a working adult, I urge you strongly, listen to this one very, very carefully, because wow, this one's interesting. Go for it, Ahnaf.
Okay. So growing up, I was the type of person who was very introverted. I didn't really like mixing with people. This is not something that came intuitively to me. In comparison, my dad was a social butterfly. He loved mixing with people. We live in the 29th floor of our condominium. So whenever we're going down to the lobby through the elevator, every person we would meet, he would strike a conversation with them. And I just couldn't relate with that. Like, how are you able to speak with everyone? And in the first conversation, you're making them feel like they've been your best friends forever. That's something I just couldn't understand. So to make me understand, my dad did this experiment with me. So we would often meet this Pakistani gentleman at our lift, and he was a very uptight person, usually very grumpy, not a very friendly person. So what my dad tried to prove me was I'm actually going to invest in my relationship with him. I'm actually going to try and connect with him 5 times, and watch, in the 6th time, he's going to be the one connecting with me. So the first time he did this, it wasn't very successful, right? He just blew it off. The second time, it was a bit better. The third time, even better. In the 4th time, he finally got to a neutral tone where he was actually just basically answering all the questions like a robot. And eventually, when we got to the 6th time, it was that gentleman who started that conversation with my dad. And believe it or not, later on, they exchanged messages, they went on meals. And that's what my dad tried to prove to me, that if you invest in relationships and really make the other person feel like you're really sincere about them, you want to connect with them and want to learn more about their hobbies and interests, then they're going to reciprocate it back. And wonderful things can emerge from that. So this is how I tried to adapt my dad's model into my life. So what I did, or what I do till now, is I create a list of all the people that I want to have a relationship with, and I categorize them. So for example, my teachers, my friends who were from Fairview, my friends at the university right now, my grandparents, my siblings. And with every single person in this list, I plan a touch point with them. This can be a conversation, it can be dining out on a meal together, it can be just a quick coffee together. And once I have planned these touch points, I put them in my calendar and really commit to it. So something I did with my teachers was every other week, outside of class time, I would just speak with them. How are they doing? What are their views on stuff that's happening politically? What's their thoughts on things that are happening in school? And there was no ulterior motive to this conversation, just trying to connect with them. And by doing this strategically, I was able to make sure that I'm connecting with everyone. I'm not really losing out on anyone. So I feel like I really learned a lot from these people. And I'm doing this because I'm genuinely interested in these people. I genuinely want to know what are their thoughts in these issues. And I feel like over time, it has helped me become emotionally smarter as well. Now I'm able to, understand a person just from their body language. And that's something I couldn't do before. So what I realized is that if I invest in relationships, make people feel valued consistently, then there's a lot for me to learn from that as well. And I'm really glad I started this in high school, because networking is a very, very important aspect of university. Networking with your professors, your teaching assistants, your alumni as well. It's really important to make connections so that when you transition into industry, it becomes a much smoother process. So I feel that since I have fostered this habit in high school, it has been a rather smooth transition into university. And I hope I can develop that even more at the networking events in my university.
Wow. So I mean, networking skills are something that's taught, forget business school, it's taught after that, frankly, at, lunch clubs and things like that. And very, very few people in the world actually even understand it. They say what you need to have a good network, but nobody really knows how to get it done. But here you are, just finished high school, and you're already well on your way with a habit. That is insane. So everybody, you heard it, get a list, and then categorize the people you want to get in touch with. It could be a teacher, people you admire. Oh, by the way, Ahnaf, could I maybe put down, like, I don't know, maybe I like Steve Jobs. I'll send him a message every week or something and see whether he'll respond one day. Could I add that to the list too?
Absolutely, why not?
Yeah, and actually, I'll take that statement and I'll say you should be surprised, because I wrote to Tony Robbins every week for a couple of weeks and he replied back. And I got to chat with him for a little while. Like, it was just a text chat. But these are the kind of things that you can do when you invest properly and strategically and write it down. You can make a serious difference, everybody. But Ahnaf, can it just, I'm just listening to it. I'm thinking, doesn't it sound just a little bit like inauthentic? Does this sound manipulative? How do you get over that? Because it feels like, do you really want to know me? I mean, are you getting to know me because I can give you something? How do you get over that inauthenticness, or that feeling of, I'm not saying it is inauthentic, it feels like it because the rest of us aren't doing it. So you're doing something that's different from everybody else.
I can see why others may perceive my habit like that, right? That's completely understandable. But for me, I don't think this is manipulative at all. I genuinely have an interest in these people. I'm not doing this with an ulterior motive in mind that, oh, they can benefit me through this connection and that connection. No, I genuinely want to learn more from these people. And to be honest, with so many connections, it's really hard to get to some people and not forget others. If you see most of my habits so far, I'm a really forgetful person. And with these habits, I'm organizing everything so that I'm respecting everyone equally. I'm respecting their time equally, and I'm just getting organized so I don't miss out on anyone.
Beautiful. I mean, I hear you. You're just trying not to miss out on everybody. Can I just ask, how much time have you scheduled with your dad and your mom and your family? I mean, is that a once a week touch point or once a month touch point? What is it like?
No, I think it's a daily thing. I'm really fortunate to have a really close relationship with my parents. My dad is currently in Bangladesh. He has been there for quite some time. And every day we tend to have at least a 10 minutes conversation. Sometimes it stretches up to 30 minutes, 1 hour. And I just like to listen to him and just absorb all that information. Same with my mom. Every breakfast, lunch, dinner, I'm always just listening and asking questions, just getting to know more about how their day has been and just trying to learn more about them. So I'm quite blessed that I can practice this daily with my parents so that I can actually transfer this skill on and do this, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis with my professional and industrial connections.
Wonderful. So everybody, you heard it from the man. It's invest in relationships regularly and strategically, an essential life skill. Now, we're going to go to the last habit that Ahnaf's going to share with us. And you just said it, like you don't have time to do everything. So how do you do it? We have habit number 5, schedule everything. Go for it.
Mhm. This is a habit that I started around grade 10. So until then, I was actually quite proud of my memory. I was always advised to write things down in a planner and get things, written, have a visual proof for that. But I never really followed that. I always trusted my memory, and thankfully it worked. But starting from grade 10, when I was taking on more subjects, I was taking on more responsibility in my extracurriculars, it just got a bit too overwhelming and I started to become more forgetful. All my life, I was relying on myself to remember these things, but from then I was actually relying on others, and I really wanted to break free of this habit. So I wanted to do something to actually overcome this. And to be honest, I didn't really have to look too far for that inspiration because my mom is the perfect example for this. She's a very organized person and she schedules everything. And I've seen that work for the last 18 years of my life. At that point, I think I was 13 or 14. So I've been seeing her do this every day for my entire life. So I thought, why don't I try this for myself in my own manner? So this is what I tried to do. Every single task I had to do, it can be something as small as getting a signature from my parents, or it can be as big as completing an entire essay. I would straight away write this down. I used Google Tasks back then in high school. These days I'm using Microsoft To Do, but every task I would dump this onto my app. But this is something that this is how a to-do list works, right? But I would argue this is not a to-do list because for every single task that I would have to do, I would schedule it for a specific date and time. So this means that actually doing things at a specific time and not just forgetting about it or just procrastinating it on and on and on. So there are some things that I learned from actually scheduling these events. So a couple of these learnings were that I learned that it's better to break down tasks into smaller chunks. So rather than just putting down complete an entire essay, I felt that it's better to do complete paragraph 1, complete paragraph 2, paragraph 3. And this way, after I'm doing each of these paragraphs, I can strike them off and I can see that I'm actually making progress, that I'm actually close to the finish line. Whereas if I just put down complete essay, that's a huge task. And whether I've started, I'm almost 99% there or 0% there, my to-do list app is just showing that I have done nothing. So I felt that if I break things down, it can actually have a proof for all the progress that I'm making. And also I learned that it's best to not schedule things back to back, because then if there is one delay or postponement, then everything else gets pushed back. So when I try to schedule things, I try to make sure that between every event, I have at least 15 to 20 minutes gap, so that if something gets postponed, my other plans remain intact. The next stage is actually to commit to your schedule. So what I tried to do was I tried to do my tasks exactly at the time that I tried to plan them. Obviously, there are going to be events that are out of my control, and I'm handed these tasks at the last moment. Well, no worries. I can just reschedule what I had in mind and get to that work right now. The last stage is something that I would admit I'm not perfect at all. I'm still developing this habit. It's to protect your schedule. So once you have your schedule ready, once I had my schedule ready, I am trying to make sure that I'm protecting it. So if there is any new task that is handed down to me, I try to make sure that, maybe I'll do this next week or sometime, and I'll put that in my calendar, and I'll definitely get to that. I will not forget about it, but at the same time, I'm not trying to push everything in today's schedule so that I get too overwhelmed or anything like that. So with this 4-step process, I try to make sure that I'm, again, trying not to be as forgetful as I am naturally.
Wow. So you heard it, guys. It's schedule everything in. Don't write a to-do list that has ambiguity about it, that has a no end point to it. So it could be, I'm going to lose weight. And, that's one of those New Year's resolutions that we always put down. Oh, I'm going to exercise a lot. And we talk about it, and then we don't put it down. We don't set a time. We don't schedule it in. We don't commit to that schedule and do it. And I really like how you've added on a couple of extra pointers here as well about, protecting your schedule and not doing things back to back and breaking it up into small chunks so it's manageable. Fantastic skill that everybody really needs to think strongly about and build a habit. I mean, how many minutes a day do you roughly spend on your schedule? I mean, do you do it first thing in the morning? Do you do it at night, middle of the day? What would you usually do there to build this habit?
When I first started this out, I tried to do that. So have a specific time in the day to get through this. But I realized that it works best for me if I just do it right away. So sometimes I'm having lunch and then I think, oh, this is something I should do. So I straight away run to my room and add it to my calendar straight away. Because if I delay it for even a couple of moments, I might forget it and never get back to it. So I've made it a habit to straight away write things down, maybe not put a time on it straight away. So I have it, it's kind of like a brain dump. So everything I have, I put it down. And then when I'm free, then I'm putting a date and time to every single task.
So schedule it immediately as you think about it, as much as possible. I mean, if you can't figure out a time there, just write it down and do it a bit later. But as much as possible, put something down. That's really powerful. Wow. Okay. So I've just jumped a bit too far there. Let me go backwards a bit. Okay. There we go. So for everybody, we've gone through our 5 habits. I'm going to summarize a little bit what the 5 habits are, but I want everybody, this is the time you wake up. I want you to put down in the chat box. Now, we're all educators here and teachers, okay? So you're going to have to forgive me here. Look at the 5 habits and which of these 5 habits most resonate with you. Try and pick 2 or 3, and which one, please consider having these habits and working on them in the next 2 weeks. Which 3 habits would you be comfortable to try and work on in the next 2 weeks? Put those numbers down in the chat box and let's just see, what do you like? What would you probably put down? Try and pick 3. So the first one is learning effectively and efficiently, where Ahnaf's talked about making good notes, and he used the outline method. Fantastic one. And then being the last to speak, not speaking first, not reacting, not talking away too much, but summarizing, synthesizing, listening, clarifying first. His 3rd habit, making connections between subjects. So when he learns something, he connects immediately. And that creates a lot of value in the future by seeing these connections nobody else can see. And the 4th one, investing in relationships, regularly and strategically. That really takes you such a long way in network. networking. And finally, schedule everything down. Put everything in that calendar and don't forget. So thank you everybody for your numbers. I can see, let's see, we've got 4 for JYL. Thank you. Lim Yi Tong is 3 and 5. Ooh, schedule and connection between subjects. Nice. Jolene is 1 and 5. Paul, I think protect the schedule. Yeah, I agree with that one too, Paul. Deepak, number 2, be the last to speak. Now, yeah, I think you look like you've been in business long enough, Deepak, to understand that people talk just way too much, isn't it? Zalina, number 2, Latif, 1 and 5. Beautiful. Ajwad, 2, 3 and 5. Frank, 3 and 5. 1, 2, 5. A lot of people like the number 5. I'm seeing number 5 pop up a lot, and I'm seeing number 1 pop up a lot. Beautiful stuff, guys. Okay, so Ahnaf, thank you so much for all these words of wisdom, guys. This is going to be recorded and it'll turn up onto our Facebook at some point. But do keep posted, follow, like, and subscribe to our Facebook page on Fairview so that you can keep abreast of this. At this point, I'm going to pass the time over to my colleague, Miss Sarah Chan, who's going to help us a little bit.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. That was such an insightful session. So thank you, Dr. Vincent and Mr. Ahnaf. I must say, as a 40-year-old plus myself, I found the tips and advices relevant. Great refresher. So participants of our webinar, do type in your comments and questions in chat box. We'll receive a couple, but for the rest, as an educator, I'll grant you think time to reflect before we could ask meaningful questions. So meanwhile, allow me to share with you information about the sponsors of our event today, Fairview International School. Fairview International School is a top IB school in Malaysia. The school has won multiple awards, including the International Award in Teaching and Learning, 5-star quality assurance title by Malaysian government, as well as being one of the member of the Council of Fairview's successes include smooth transitions. Next slide, please. High academic success and great communication. 60% of all our students receive scholarship offers, and some even before they get their final results, just like Ahnaf. We are indeed the top IBDP school in 2020, and we could not have done this without the support and strong communication channels with our parents. 90% of our parents feel that communication at Fairview is frequent, delightful, and relevant. Our high academic achievement is evident through our latest IBDP results. Besides the extremely high average score, we also have 100% passing score for 7 years. Ladies and gentlemen, the scores is the outcome of breakthrough journeys experienced by every one of our IBDP students. Just like Ahnaf, they each have a great story to tell. At Fairview, we believe our success is a result of our uniqueness through our IB pedagogies, which is the way we teach, our future-proof at FIS series of events, and the Everyone's a Musician program. Feel free to contact us through the different channels displayed on the screen. We look forward to hear from you. Great. I now see the questions from the floor. We have a question. Ready, gentlemen? Okay, this is from Li Xian. For primary children, how can we start this habit? What method should we use? For primary children, how can we start this habit? What method should we use? So we should.
You can share like which habit she's talking about, because we've got 5 habits here. Lisa, do you want to unmute and share with us?
Yes, I want to the note-taking habit, because I always try to get my kids to do note-taking. So what is the best way to do note-taking for younger children to start this habit early?
Ahnaf, do you want to give your ideas? What do you think?
Well, I was quite blessed to actually be introduced to all the different note-taking methods in Fairview. So when I was actually introduced to them, I joined Fairview when I was in grade 5. And when I was taught these methods, I tried my best to actually evaluate them. What works for me, what doesn't. I think the learning should come from school. And I was quite blessed to actually have that learning. So I was able to apply it. But Dr. Vincent, I think, as a father of 3 children, I think you should be able to speak more about this.
No, I got 4 kids, and my suggestion is show them the different note-taking methods. There are printables that you can print off the internet for each of those note-taking skills that they learn. I believe that they learn 5 different note-taking skills in the school, and the teachers will take them through each one. And out of the 5, they are going to hate a few of them and like a few of them. And this is a personal choice situation. I personally feel for my own kids and the kids I've taught before, once you give people choice to choose which skill they want, their level of engagement and ownership of the situation increases a lot. So basically, you just show them 5, let them test out 5 in front of you, and then help them decide which of the 5 do they like best, and then help them do more of that. And that works for me, at least. That'd be my suggestion, Lisa.
Thanks. That's quite helpful. I'll look into it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa, for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. A second question we have is from Nicole. This is for Ahnaf. Could Ahnaf share how old he is and why he is motivated to study in the first place? Ahnaf is young, so I don't think you mind sharing your age to you, Ahnaf.
Yeah, no worries. So I turned 18 this July, and motivation for studying. Well, my family was in a very special circumstance because we moved from Bangladesh to Malaysia, not for any other reason, but just to study. My parents made this sacrifice because they believed that studying in Malaysia would give me and my siblings more opportunities than we would have earned in Bangladesh. So they have made so many sacrifices for me. Like, for instance, my dad, he doesn't live here, full time. He travels back and forth every 2 weeks for the past decade or so. And that means my mom is here handling all 3 of us all the time. So I'm constantly seeing all these sacrifices that they're doing for me. And the least I could do is actually, give it back to them, show that I'm actually serious about the things they're giving me. So I feel my dad and my mom are the biggest role models in that sense. And it's the same for university and moving forward as well.
Thank you. Okay. Nicole, anything that you'd like to ask additional to that? All right, then. Thanks, Nicole. So we have another question here. Oh, this is more on the investment before it pays off. How long do I need to invest in these habits before it starts paying off?
I think it really depends. Like, for example, habit number 5, organizing everything. Scheduling everything. This took some time. And I wouldn't say I'm perfect at it even till now, even after doing this for 5 years. I'm still trying to improve myself and really trying to consolidate this habit. But there are habits like, for instance, making connections between subjects. That came really intuitively to me because that was taught to me from such a young age. So it really depends. And I think it depends from person to person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. From Frank. Frank, if you hear, you'd like to unmute. Which subjects do you feel strongly connected to help him systematically memorize some of the related knowledge?
I think the most important and impactful subject I learned in high school that helped me with this was business and economics once again. These 2 subjects, I feel like it introduced us to like a wide range of concepts. So the focus was on the breadth There was a lot of depth as well, but breadth was the priority. And as we were introduced to all these business concepts, finance, marketing, and even in economics, let it be microeconomics, macroeconomics, trade, all of these different sections, I felt that a lot of these, especially when we learned it in IB, we tried to connect everything to what's actually happening in the real world. So when we are taught to foster this connection making skill in class, I felt that I could easily also transfer this and make connections between different subjects as well.
Ahnaf, if I may jump in there, everybody, so Frank and everybody else who's listening in, he likes business and economics, but it doesn't mean you are or you need to as well. You need to, okay, I wouldn't say what you need to. Everybody's got a preference for something. Some people like biology, some people like math, some people like English, some people like art. Whichever it is that that really connects to you, link all of your learning to that. So I may like art, and then I'm learning biology. Link it to art. But doing that, it really helps connect it to your interests. Ahnaf just happened to like business and economics a lot. So yeah, that's how that flows, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Further from Frank, actually, he said he's from M3, so he'd like to get some ideas and inspiration on choosing a subject. Frank, do you mind unmuting and sharing? You mean choosing subjects for M4?
I think my favorite subject would be science and biology. Yeah, and I want to get some ideas from him because he's a very successful student.
Okay, so you're referring to choosing your subjects for M4 and 5. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I see.
All right. I think, again, it depends. It depends on what you really enjoy learning. So for me, I was not a scientifically, I was not a student who was really inclined into the sciences. So starting from M4, I've always been taking just one science. And this is, I would say it's contradicting to a lot of things that I've heard. People should take 2 science, 3 science, and so on. But I stuck to my guts and I said that, no, I am more inclined towards business and economics. I will definitely take 1 science, but I would actually try to focus my energy and effort towards the subjects that really match with my passion and my interests. So my best advice would be to just follow your interests and do what you love to do.
Ahnaf, I want to follow on there. In many pre-university courses, they have a limited selection of subjects. So say, for example, in the A-levels, they probably not even do science at all. Because you did the diploma program, you did economics and business, and you did a science. Which science was that, by the way?
Physics.
Okay, physics. How do you feel that doing physics, has it wasted your time with regards to your interest in business and economics? How has it helped you, or has it not helped you as you progress forward in your career?
It has helped me a lot. Over time, I got to be more and more grateful that I took physics. I had a really wonderful teacher as well who tried to make things as simple and as intuitive for me to learn. So I think there were 2 key takeaways from learning physics, or just the science in general. The first was actually the content. So, when we learned about energy production and heat and motion and so on, a lot of these concepts can actually be transferred to business and economic side as well. I wouldn't say a lot, but there is still some key takeaways. But I think the second and most important part is that the way you approach science problems, the scientific method, feel that mindset and actually practicing this over the last couple of years, that has helped me actually shape my thoughts in a very systematic manner. And I feel I can actually carry that over beautifully into business and economics.
Wow, who's your physics teacher? Let's do a shout out.
Miss Aish.
Miss Aish, thank you very much. You have inspired one's soul. Well done.
Well done indeed. Dr. V, now we have a question from Nicole. When does it start to have awareness to learning? So when did he start to have this awareness of learning how to learn. I think that's what you meant.
That's a better phrase, yeah.
I think, looking back, I think the most impactful grade was M4. This was the time we were transitioning from a middle school to an actual high school environment where we had more subjects, more responsibilities, and so on. And I realized that all the habits or lack thereof that I had developed in the last 7-8 years in middle school and primary school, I realized that it's not sustainable. I needed to do better. And I wanted to maintain the same results that I had till then, but I realized the methods are not going to be the same. So I had to actually reflect and invest my time into fostering these habits. So yeah, M4 was the key year for me.
Great, thanks, Ahnaf.
Reflect about their progress. That's just crazy.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. We could take the question on how did Ahnaf adapt to learning online? How about that?
Well, just like everyone, it was a rather rough transition, right? I think even for teachers, it was a huge learning curve, and similarly for students, it was a big learning curve as well. I think the main takeaway that I had from that transition was to really focus on scheduling everything. That was my last habit that I spoke about. Because when I'm studying in my bedroom all day, it's very easy to procrastinate and just lay down, catch a Netflix show, and just chill all the time. But because I started to really commit to my schedule and protecting it as much as possible, I tried to make sure that, I'm getting things done on time. Something that I've noticed is that no matter which middle school or high school curriculum you are in, no matter how challenging it is, if you do the work on time, it is not that difficult as we think it is. So obviously, I wouldn't say that I was I didn't procrastinate. I definitely procrastinated a lot, but I tried to minimize that as much as possible. So yeah, just doing things on time.
Sarah, do you mind if I sneak in one question? I thought, Deepak has a really interesting question there up on the chat group.
I see. I thought Ahnaf have addressed it, but yes, please go ahead, Doctor.
Oh, he's got a very interesting one. Deepak, do you want to ask that question about that combining concepts question? Yourself? Thank you, sir.
The main inspiration I had for that was that when Warren Buffett found out that there was a correlation between marketing and profit, he increased the marketing of a company so much that the profit went through the billions, right? So I'm wondering how you would combine some things you learned, like accounting, finance, marketing. I don't know how deep you have gone into those concepts, but how would you combine things you learn in BBA to better business for everyone, right? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, actually I have. And what I've actually planned to do until now is that really try to have simple and effective notes for my lectures. And what I try to do is that after every couple of weeks, I try to synthesize everything that I've learned. So, and my plan for this is that as helpful as it would be for me to actually have these notes to prepare for my midterms or my final exams, my plan is actually to revisit these notes from time to time and see if there are any connections that I, wasn't able to think of on top of my head, but by revisiting my notes and making them as presentable as it is for me, then I hope that I can make these connections over time. So that's my plan so far, but I'll be happy to learn more from you.
Will I see more of that in your exams? Like, you really write all that stuff down in your exams for good marks?
Well, I try my best.
Okay, perfect. I know you will. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I really like how you focused on the process of discovery rather than the output, recognizing that the process will eventually get you the output, but the process in developing that habit is more important. That's great takeaway for me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Likewise. I see that how it's all very intentional enough, systematic. You put it down, you schedule it in so that when you follow the schedule faithfully, things will get done in the way that you've planned. Awesome habits. Thank you very much, Ahnaf and Dr. Vincent. And thank you to all our participants who've joined us today. It's time for us to bid farewell for this late morning. We have a series, Breakthrough Stories, coming up. So do subscribe to us in our Facebook, Instagram, and we'll share with you all our upcoming events, more great stories to share, just like Ahnaf's story today.
Miss
Thank
Khan,
you.
Miss
Yes.
Khan, I think Ahnaf's father would like to say something. You put in the chat box. So
Oh,
please,
great. Sorry, I
yes,
didn't see that.
yes.
Yes, sir. Please carry on.
Mr. Rahman, you're here.
Hi, hope you can hear me.
Yep,
Yes,
we can hear you.
Mr. Rahman.
Hi, Mr. Vincent. I hope everybody is doing fine. I'm really blessed for everything, especially the program the events. I would say a little bit about Ahnaf, that he is all through a very organized boy. Apart from his study, he tries to do everything what is required for his mom. As I'm most of the times I'm apart, but it's a blessings from Allah to our God that to have a boy same like that. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional actually. And thanks a lot, Mr. Vincent and the Fairview School. And we are looking forward that he can be a boy or man in future who can be the holding the flag for Bangladesh and also for Fairview. Thank you very much. Thanks for your support.
Thank you very
Mr.
much
Rahman.
for that sharing, sir.
Wow, you got such a proud daddy. I could see you blushing there.
We are
I
so
think
proud
your
of you,
dad
sir.
wants you to achieve great things, and I think you are going to achieve great things. And at Fairview, on behalf of everybody at Fairview, we're just really proud to have been a part of the process, to walk along the way with you, because you could have done this anywhere. What you've done, I think, Mr. Rahman, how you taught your son is a real testament here. How you raised him really changed everything. And Mrs. Rahman, how you inspired him to do his scheduling. I mean, you can hear everybody here. You can hear parents, when you role model for your kids, they learn. They really learn. If you're disorganized, your kids are going to learn that. If you're
Actually, Mr. Vincent, the thing is, sorry to interrupt. Definitely, I try my level best to do staying apart from my family, because the main role played by my wife actually.
Wow.
She is super unbelievable. She lost her mother during this epidemic and she could not come even to Bangladesh.
Oh.
Unbelievable. We cannot think of the sacrifice she has made. Please bear me. I got emotional. Sorry for that. But please pray for all of my family. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Rahman. Thank you for sharing that. Even you go through difficult things. Mrs. Rahman, you're still so strong. That's beautiful. So everybody, you've heard it from those who have walked the path. There are things that you can do, to really supercharge your life with these wonderful habits. For parents, lots of amazing takeaways. Role model for your kids. Be strong with them, and show them the way. And you're going to end up with just the same things to happen. It's quite consistent. When you practice these habits, your kids will learn them from you, and it will change everything. Thank you so very much, everybody, for coming to our conversation. I really hope that all of you have taken something back from it, and that these habits change your life. And when they do, drop us a comment on the FB post when we post these things up. So let us know that it made a difference in your life. And that's going to inspire other people like Ahnaf to share their stories, so that more people can grow. This is a beautiful positive spiral that we're going to encourage everybody with. Okay. Well, have a wonderful day, everybody. Be well, be safe, and God bless all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for making the time. It really means a lot to me.